Well, as we continue a conversation in some ways from this past week's episode with Gary Thomas, where we talked about the 5 senses that we can bring to sex and just using our sight, smell, touch, taste, and hearing, and how that can expand married sex. We're going to jump right into an email that came in that goes a whole lot different in some ways on when it can get bad in a relationship, right? Because if you think about what happens in married sex, there's elements of time where, man, it can get really off the rails. I guess is some ways to describe it. And so this email just came in, and it's a wife, or it's a woman, because this is a couple who's not married. So this is a woman that's saying, "Hi, I've recently started listening to your show, and I'm hoping you can help me figure out how to grow, or at least find clarity in my relationship. My partner and I have been together for 5 years, but we never really connected sexually. He prefers the rough porn-style sex while I long for more intimacy. I've tried to meet him halfway. I've even tried anal, urine play, even rimming, but I've struggled to find any real pleasure in any of these experiences. They often feel uncomfortable and even violating. He frequently pushes boundaries during sex. For example, he'll choke me during oral sex, hold my head down until I gag or can't breathe. And when I say I can't breathe or ask him to stop, he tells me just breathe around it. And I genuinely don't know what that means or how to do it safely. He also ignores my limits by continuing after I climax, making me squirm in discomfort when I ask him to stop. The only time he seems to touch me, kiss me, or massage me is to initiate sex, which makes me feel more pressured. He says he's doing it because I told him that those are the things that turn me on, but it feels like there's no room for non-sexual connection anymore. He tells me I'm not doing enough to satisfy him and that I should initiate more, but I honestly don't want to. Sex has become something I dread. He wants it to last for hours, and I prefer it short. I usually climax once and feel done, but he wants to keep pushing for more and more, and I often can even find myself faking orgasms just to get through it. We recently opened the relationship because I know I can't meet his needs sexually, but he only wants to sleep with his exes, which I'm not okay with due to their history. He says strangers are too hard to initiate with. I've prayed on this. I've tried to keep an open mind, but I'm starting to feel lost, like I'm just not enough, like maybe we're not sexually compatible after all. Please help me figure out what to do. There's a lot of pain in this one.
There's so much here. And I think we start off with, you're not even married, and
right.
He's not so there's not a commitment here.
There's an issue there already, because what's that really signifying?
Yeah, it's like, right. I'm sorry, you're getting my initial reaction, and I'm one of those reactive that I really should think before I speak. But I'm listening to this going, whoa. What are you doing in this relationship?
Yeah. Yeah, this is one of those. This is a content that I find myself at times where it's tough, because I want to still keep a therapist hat on in a lot of ways. But then there's another human side of me that's like, okay, this is real red flags everywhere. And that's my therapist hat talking too. But there's all kinds of issues that are being brought up. But I want to talk, just to start off the conversation with you, Pam, on, to me, this is not about compatibility. This is about respect, flat out, full stop. It's about respect.
Yeah, which
self-respect,
sounds like he has
and
none
respect
for her.
Another human being.
Yeah, it sounds like he has none for her.
It is not being honored.
No.
Right. And so there's an element of this that it starts and ends with respect. And so I appreciate her courage in reaching out with this, because yes, she's opening herself up to a lot of people that will hear this and have immediate reactions.
Sure.
Right. And that's a human part of us, and that's an aspect of us. But man, this is not about compatibility. It's not at all about compatibility. It's about respect completely. And what she's describing is there is none, unless it's completely on his terms. And granted, this is her experience.
Yeah.
But there is none.
The email just sounds like other people, other women are just a tool for him to get off. That's what it sounds like.
Right. And hence the title for today's episode is whose pleasure is this for, really?
Yeah.
Right. And that's what's described, because this is one of the things I'll hear. And this is where I want to spend time talking about this the nuances within this kind of a dynamic where she's not the only one that experiences some, maybe to this degree, there's less and less, but the pressures and the dynamics that happen inherently in our sexual dynamic in relationship, man, there's all kinds of things that come up with this issue or dynamic, or who's really pushing for this, and what happens if I don't get it, and how do I manipulate and cajole it to make it happen, and what do I do when it doesn't, and where's respect thrown out the window?
I want so much more for her, right?
Yes.
It sounds like she's a believer. She believes in prayer anyway. And there's so much more that can be had, and that is a relationship is intended to be.
Right. And so for the regular version, I want to spend time talking specifically about this that will still be applicable to larger audiences, because there's dynamics and aspects that I need to ask some better questions of myself.
Okay.
Were I in any kind of close to that continuum, on the degree.
Yeah.
And then on the extended content today, which is deeper is longer and there's no ads, you can subscribe at smr.fm/academy. We're going to get into what do I do when I'm talking about preferences and reclaiming my voice? Where do I actually stand when it comes to my own sexuality and my own sex life? So we use it a more global framework that still is applicable for here, but it also will be applicable for all. Because granted, she is facing some things that are a lot more tough things to really examine and face, because she's reaching out for help. And so this, at face value, I'm assuming, just because of what I know of you of 32 years almost that we've been together married, and a lot of people listening, that I can hear a lot of people saying, you got to get out. You got to leave. This is not a safe relationship.
Yeah, that would
right.
certainly. If this was my girlfriend coming to me explaining this, I would say, what are you doing in this relationship? What is it that you're getting out of this relationship?
Right.
Where do you think it's going? I mean, it's already been opened up to other people joining in this relationship.
Right, which just shows the lengths that we will go as humans to try to satisfy or avoid or deal with some pain point. Well, let's try this. And then we're just throwing bad after bad after bad sometimes.
Well, and that's where I get it. What is it she's looking for from this relationship?
She wants more intimacy. She wants more closeness. She wants more connection. And if it's performance based, it lacks that, because then she has to put on a show.
Did she say that in the email?
Well, that's what,
she
wants
more
said,
intimacy?
I want more intimacy. He wants it to last
from
for
him
hours.
or just in a relationship with someone who actually would respect her.
Well, respect is paramount for intimacy. You have to have it, because that's what helps start to create a container where you can let your guard down, and you can let yourself be seen a little more. Because otherwise we stay at the surface, and we don't ever let anybody see who we really are. And then we wonder, why do I feel so alone? And so this is just that element of, she's trying to frame this in if it's a compatibility issue, because everybody has compatibility issues. Let's go ahead and get that out in the open too.
Okay.
We talk about this as desire differences. That's the same thing. You want something a little bit different than I do. Even if we want the same thing, it's still a little different. And so compatibility differences and different turn-ons, different nuance, different whatever, if there is no respect and mutuality, you can't bridge that gap. Okay. And so that's one component of this situation on why this is a giant red flag, is there's a problem here, because it sounds like whatever I do is not even close to enough. And so therefore we got major problems, right? And if they insist on doing things that hurt you, and they avoid or don't even acknowledge your voice or come up with ways around it, then that's a boundary issue, which is also still respect.
Yeah.
Or lack thereof.
Yeah. Yeah. Choking me, I don't want to be choked. Breathe around it, I don't even know what that means. And then what's next? That makes me think, if this is what he wants now, at what point does he want?
Where does it end?
Yeah. It just, my assumption is that it just gets more and more.
And that's that idea
dark.
I feel like I'm never enough. And that's a component I'll hear a lot in couples. I'm never enough for them. And it comes to varying degrees. And the way I initially react to that is, who says you're supposed to be? On a spiritual level, a human being is never going to be. God is the only thing that would be enough, right? But even in a fallen world in which we live, enoughness is a troublesome thing because it's a broken world. But when you start to look at this dynamic about it's never enough, well, that tells you something too. Because what I would encourage her to do is look at some of these objectively, right? Because she's going to hear them filtered through emotion, pain, disrespect, dismissal, manipulation, pressure, right? So if you just looked at this objectively, if you're hearing us recount this again now for you objectively, what counsel would you give a friend if they came to you in this situation, if they shared what this was in this situation?
Yeah.
Right?
Truly.
Oftentimes that gives us a clue in of what we're facing too.
Yeah.
Right? So if you look at this I want to add one little aspect too, though, because this is one of those things where when we talk about the way we titled the show today of whose pleasure is this really, then you need to look at and ask the question of pleasure's not just what happens to your body. It's also how you feel about after experiences.
Okay.
Right.
And the funny thing is, she's ready to have something be done, and he wants to keep going.
Okay, you're going on the literal sense, though. When you look back at what went on, though, how do you feel about yourself and what went down?
I got you.
Do you hold some I don't feel good about that. I feel violated. I feel dismissed. I feel used. I feel objectified. I feel unseen. Because I think this is where it starts to become applicable to all of us. Because pleasure is not just things that happen in the moment on a biological level. It's also things that what's my interpretation and experiences after it's gone on and I look back at it. Because a lot of times that clues us in to there is something more amiss than I'm allowing myself to really see. And then I need to ask myself some better questions of what do I need to do to create better boundaries? Because pleasure can't thrive if there's no boundaries, particularly if they're not honored, which is what it sounds like, right? And so this is really looking at the differences of how do I ask myself about these dynamics? Because she's describing a lot of things that go on in her life, particularly sexually, that she tolerates, not that she wants, which there's a big marker too.
Yeah. How long can you tolerate it, and why would you tolerate it?
Yeah.
I like your perspective of looking at what would I tell my friends, right? What would I tell a friend that came to me?
Right.
What would if I can actually look at this objectively? Because when we're looking at things for ourselves, sometimes it's hard to be objective. I just think about I'm more afraid of being alone,
or the repercussions of if I stand up for myself.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times we kick conflict down the road, which what we don't realize is I'm actually just inviting a larger conflict most of the time. So I need to get better at facing things in the moment. Because this is one of the questions I would have for her. When you're talking about just in general boundaries and respect, if she was to look at the entirety of her relationship with him, right, of the other aspects of her relationship, because she's already talked about even touch has now changed where it only seems to happen when it's steered only towards the sexual component. Granted that some of this sounds like she even said as much. That does turn me on. I do like this when there's touch outside that leads towards it. And so therefore, it just becomes a habitual thing that happens. But look at the other aspects of your relationship, the way you communicate, the way your emotions are shared with each other, the way you parcel out who does what in the relationship dynamic, who carries what load, who's responsible for different aspects of that. I don't know. I'm assuming they may live together. I don't know. That detail's not in there. But there's still a household that you co-create in some ways. Are boundaries honored there? If you say, if I came to pick you up, let's use this as an easy example. If I came to pick you up for dinner or lunch during work one day, and I just show up and I say, hey, let's go to Chipotle. And you say, no, I really don't want Chipotle. And we go to Chipotle anyway. In some ways, that's not honoring what you're requesting.
Fair.
Right?
Yeah.
It's bullying my way into what I want in that moment.
Yeah.
And in a lot of areas of life where it's not as severe of the pressure and dynamic, that's okay. I'll swing by, pick up Chipotle, and we'll go get what you want, and I'll eat it there. That's easy. Those are easier to figure out ways around. But then in other areas, it's not that easy to do.
Well, there's other areas that are moral issues. It's safety issues. So many things that are involved in what we're talking about here.
Yes.
That are way deeper than
and
what food chain
it sounds to me like, just looking back through this, this email came in just a little bit ago, and so I've read it through several different times, and now just talking it through, it sounds to me like if she was honest with herself, she probably knows what I'm really facing, which is a tough choice. I want to honor that, because we can sit here when we hear stuff from other people, and I don't mean just you and I as podcast hosts of Sexy Marriage Radio. I mean, just when we hear stuff from friends, it's very, very easy just to project on, heck no, I would tell them this, and I would do this, and I would, all these kinds of things. Whereas if it was truly that easy for them to do that, you would not be hearing about it. They would have already done it.
Yeah, everybody's got their own backstory. They've got their own things they've lived through. So there's a fear of missing out on this if I make decision A. There's a fear of what'll happen if I make decision B. Whatever the case may be, because of where I've come from, because of what I've seen.
So there's always more going on. The context is king, and we don't know all the context.
Yeah.
And so anytime, this is one of the things I would just say at face value to help anybody else that's listening that maybe are in a situation similar to some sort of degree, or are brought into situations because of some friends that maybe open up to you. And so context always is king. And so we have to be very, very mindful of, we don't get to dictate what someone should or shouldn't do. We can offer suggestions if they ask.
Be curious.
But so a lot of times then it starts to become, how do I help frame better questions? That's where we keep landing.
Oh, we always do.
Because I think that helps give a framework that is more empowering for situations. Right?
Yeah.
And so for her, she needs to ask herself some pretty pointed questions of, what am I afraid of if I was actually saying no and acting accordingly to, right? Because I realize some of the situations she describes, you can feel very, very powerless in the moments, but they build up to that point. And if you start seeing it heading a direction, it's like, nope, been down this path, don't like how this goes. At best, I tolerate it. It's not pleasurable for me. It's not in line with anything I want. So what is it? What is she afraid of if she actually said no? And if it's not honored, if she actually removed herself from the situation, and then even went further and removed herself from the relationship? Maybe she does it for a time. Maybe she does it for good. I don't know. But what is she afraid of? Because that's how you start getting to the deeper, what's really fueling why I put up with some of this?
Yeah, if she doesn't know what it is she's afraid of, then she can't address the real issue, because she'll, even if she leaves this relationship, she'll dive into it in the next one, right? You got to get at the core issue. Don't just treat the symptoms, right? Go to the core issue and tackle it.
This question in and of itself is one of the most empowering questions there is, because I start getting deeper and deeper into, what do I really hold dear? And when I start having that understanding, then I have the possibility of hopefully looking at it through a lens of, okay, if that's what I say I hold dear, do my actions align with that? Because if it doesn't, man, I'm in a bad spot, and other people will take advantage of that.
Yeah, they'll take advantage of it. They won't treat you well. They won't treat you the way that,
I mean, if she's even gone to the lengths of, we'll open up the relationship and maybe that will be a solution, that's an escape route. That's not facing the issue. That's not facing the dynamic. That's not facing herself.
I don't even understand how that's an escape route. Escape route for what?
From actually having to face, what is she being asked to tolerate and put up with to the demise of herself? Because this is that dynamic we get caught in. We get in this continuum of, I'm willing to sacrifice myself for the sake of a relationship to a point. And then sometimes I'm willing to sacrifice a relationship for the sake of myself to a point. That's the continuum of life, right? Because I'm trying to figure out, how do I exist and how does my relationship exist? That's what I've got to figure out. And what's happening here is, this is not a woman that's broken. This is a woman that's wanting intimacy and connection, but she's going about it in ways that are not going to bring it up. Because if you don't make stands for yourself, you're ultimately hurting yourself. And that's painful. That's a painful spot. And so this is about reclaiming that your desires matter. Your voice matters. Your body matters. Your no matters. Your preference matters. Right? And you don't have to justify why. Either.
No.
Like,
and if he doesn't like it,
I don't want to do this. I feel demeaned if I do this. That's justification enough. Actually, you don't even have to add that. I don't want to do this is a complete sentence. Well, but you've done it before. Not anymore. Yeah, but blah, blah. Okay. Because he's going to make moves.
Oh, yeah.
He will make moves, and he will try whatever he can, and that's worked in the past.
He'll try guilt. He'll try, you name it. I need this.
Because if you think about it, we all have playbooks on how I try to get my way. So I need to just get better at recognizing, okay, wait, what do I need to do that truly is honoring of me? This is that classic one we use a bunch of. What's my next best self-respecting move? Because this is going to be a tough road for her. I mean, I don't want to diminish that at all. It is a tough, tough road, but she is not obligated to endure discomfort or fear or pain just for the sake of his pleasure or fantasy. That is not her obligation. It's not her place. So her yes should always, 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 always feel free, and her no should always, 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 always be honored. There's the trouble. How does she now start seeing ways to live towards that? And I'd give her the last bit of thought is oftentimes, if you can start looking at this thing globally, like we talked about, where what are the other areas of my relationship with this guy that I can see a similar pattern? And how can I start there if I'm not willing to jump into the deep end yet? Because that's the scary part. But if it's also to this degree, you might need to just start right there with the deeper part.
With the deeper part.
Right.
Gotcha.
But sometimes you can start to realize, you know what? I've gone along with this thing, and it really does bother me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've said several times, I don't like this. I said several times, I would prefer it this way. And so I'm going to just start living better with that way. When it's not honored, okay. Rather than trying to convince it or explain it or whatever, it's okay. Fair enough. I've heard your answer. I can't be part of that now. I choose to not participate in this dynamic, this aspect anymore. And that's how I start easing my way in. And then it just becomes a no-brainer. Because you start seeing, yeah, this isn't worth it for me. This is not something that is edifying and uplifting for me and my well-being. And then there's your answer.
Yeah, in my belief system, you know.
So, man, I wish her the best, because it's some tough things to face. I hope it's easier than we think it might be. I think it might be for her, that it becomes just clear and easy, but
it may be hard. It may be ridiculously hard, but what she's living through with him is hard too.
Yes. And this is that whole choose your hard.
And on the other side of standing up for yourself, asking yourself these questions, acting respectably so that you are respected, on the other side of that, there's the light.
Yeah. You become a better person.
Yeah.
You become a person much more capable of things you didn't even realize, because you start look at what I've tolerated and look at what I don't do anymore.
Yeah. You can teach people how to treat you. And that's part of what you're looking at here.
And so I hear very clearly this is a tough spot for her. But I also know the fact that she's reaching out, she has the capability to face it and make the steps necessary for her. That's the goal. Absolutely. The relationship is secondary if it survives, but it's her. She's the one that matters. So do what she needs to do for her.